This is CBC Here and Now.
I'd like to advise that last evening we learned of our fourth case of COVID-19 in Newfoundland and Labrador.
COVID-19 has reached the island with a fourth presumptive case, this one in the eastern region. Hi there, I'm Carolyn Stokes, and this is Here and Now. We'll get to those details in just a minute, but first, if you're a loyal viewer, you know there have been some last-minute changes here at CBC which have affected Here and Now. We can promise you they are temporary, and it's all because of COVID-19. The CBC Broadcast Centre in Toronto, which is how our show gets to air on television, is facing crucial staffing shortages because of people who are in self-isolation or working from home, and that has affected how the CBC as a network can broadcast. So for now, we'll bring you the show online as well as some content included with CBC News Network programming. So let's get to our top story. There are now 4 cases of COVID-19 in the province. The latest presumptive case announced today by health officials is in the eastern health region of the island. The person came back from Spain. The other cases, 1 confirmed and 2 presumptive, are in the Labrador region. Now, those details were released today by health officials. So let's bring in Here and Now's Peter Cowan. Peter.
Carolyn, the other big change that we're seeing today is who has to isolate when they get to the province. It's not just people arriving internationally now. The Premier announced today that anyone who travels to Newfoundland and Labrador from any other part of the country is going to have to be isolated for 14 days. And here's how he explained why they're making this move.
We are making a decision that will further protect you from the spread of COVID-19. Today, any individual returning from out of the province will be absolutely required to quarantine for 14 days. This includes international travels and those arriving from another province. We will do everything within our power to implement the strictest screening measures possible to protect Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, including implementing health assessment forms to be completed at the point of entry of the province. Understanding that our province will require a flow of goods, things like groceries, household supplies, medical supplies, we will work extremely closely with Marine Atlantic, OceanX, and our trucking companies to make sure proper measures are in place to receive those goods. Details of today's announcements will be discussed and reviewed closely, and we will be taking further action in the coming days. We must act now. If this situation wasn't serious, we would not be doing this. We are looking at implementing any and all measures that we can that would help contain COVID-19 to protect Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. We have an advantage. We are remote and rural in many areas, and particularly in Labrador and through the island portion of Newfoundland, and you would say that our geography many times has been to our disadvantage. But there's advantages in this particular case. We are an island, and islands off this island and include remote Labrador as well.
Can we get some more details on what specific action you'd like people to take if they're concerned about someone who is clearly violating the rules that exist?
Through our COVID-19 website, we are working with OCIO. Hopefully by the end of the day, we will have a Contact Us section there, which will pop up and require populating with some specific details. A lot of the, until recently, a lot of the commentary we've received through email has been, 2 people with a suntan were walking down the street in Gander, should they be out and about? And that's not been terribly helpful. So we're hoping to firm up the quality of the information we get. And obviously, if that is a significant challenge, then we'll try and find some ways to meet it. Some of these procedures, if you like, it's likened to retuning and rebuilding a car engine while the vehicle's actually moving. We are in uncharted waters here. We're making some sensible, or what we believe to be sensible, first steps, and then as the situation evolves, we will adapt and deal with the challenges that arise. So it's not a perfect plan, but it's better than waiting to see what happened. We don't want to be Italy, we want to be Singapore.
If I could add to that is, a few days ago, we put in place a public health state of emergency in this province, and there are consequences for those that follow those rules, and we are prepared to do whatever it takes to make sure that we protect the health of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Now, the province admits that this plan hasn't always had all the details worked out. So, for example, what about flight attendants and pilots who may just be overnighting here or have come back from overnighting elsewhere? What about things like truck drivers who are just here for a shortened period of time? They're promising they are going to figure those things out. The other issue is, what about the border between Quebec and Labrador? You see lots of places where, for example, there are families that live just on one side of the border and visit to the other. And, for example, to take the ferry from Labrador, you have to go into Quebec to then get to Newfoundland. And the Premier admits they still don't know exactly how that's going to work.
Complicated. They're families, Peter. They're families that have relatives in Blanc Blanc, the Quebec side, and in the Labrador Straits. And we've considered this, and we want to work with those groups. It's not about making it is about making sure that people have those family connections. And we know that we utilize the healthcare sector, the healthcare services, sometimes in Quebec, and likewise they come into Labrador as well. So the objective here is to make sure we get the information in place for people as they come into the Straits area, and likewise as Newfoundlanders and Labradorians go into the Quebec side. So there's some work that we need to do there, working with the community. This is really about, as I said, making sure we protect Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, in this case, even protect people that live in Quebec as well.
Now, this weekend, health officials are going to continue to work, and they have promised to continue these daily briefings throughout the weekend. And if you want to be able to watch them live, we're going to continue to stream them on our Facebook page, as well as cbc.ca/NL. Carolyn?
Thanks, Peter. That's Here and Now's Peter Cowan reporting. Well, a massive chicken producer in the province says not to worry, there will be chicken on store shelves soon. Some grocery stores have looked like this, empty shelves in the poultry section. Many people on social media have been asking for help finding chicken in stores. Country Ribbon says it shouldn't have any trouble supplying the market. The company says it has a plan in place to stay in full operation. Well, restaurants in Gander are having to make big changes to try to keep their doors open as business is plummeting. It's all related to COVID-19. Here Now's Garrett Berry has more.
Well, for us, basically we just had a choice to make whether or not we were going to close our doors or try to continue to stay open amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. So we decided to give it a go with closing the dining room and doing a local meal delivery service within Gander. Our biggest problem right now is we have 3 people off on isolation, 2 due to travel, myself and my daughter, who's our restaurant manager, and one of our cooks is off because his mother has the flu, and she's had the flu for a couple of weeks, but we've got to take it easy now. It's been insanity. I don't even know how other restaurants could be doing it. Our staff is very small, very small. We have a huge kitchen. You've seen our kitchen, I believe. So we have the ability to maintain our distance at work. But a lot of places don't. A lot of places have tiny, tiny kitchens with 3 or 4 or 5 sometimes people working in them. I don't know how they're functioning right now.
And we've gone from 400 to 600 people per day, and we're down now for probably less than 100 a day. And it's a huge impact. Significant is not the word. I mean, you know, like I said, we were a very vibrant business a week ago. And within a week, we are, well, just barely keeping the doors open. We had a meeting Wednesday afternoon, and it was the hardest thing that I had to do. We have a staff of 24 people. And when we walked out that day, we had 8 people gone. We had 8 people that we had to lay off, and that's a hard thing to do, especially with sudden notice. Nobody was prepared for it. But when you see your business drop off like this, you have no other choice. We're only a small business at the end of the day.
Basically, our message to them is, you know, this is what we're doing. Please support us. You know, restaurant business it's all, our margins are tiny. The winters it's a miracle some of us get through the winters in Newfoundland. We just don't have the population to support us during the colder months, and snow days don't help that. But basically, we're just saying, you know, please support us, and we're going to be at this as long as we can.
Well, Marine Atlantic has now closed its terminals in Port aux Basques and North Sydney for the next 2 days, and crossings are expected to be cancelled until Sunday evening because of a weather system that will bring heavy rain and strong winds. Marine Atlantic says there are restrictions already in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19, so there's no room in the terminals to accommodate people waiting to cross. It's been limiting the number of passengers on its ferries to 250, and people who have traveled internationally in the previous 14 days are asked to wait in a separate section of the terminals. Spokesperson Daryl Mercer says they expect an increase in passengers returning from trips overseas in the next few days, and there won't be any room to isolate those people for an extended period. Marine Atlantic anticipates regular crossings will resume Sunday evening. Well, let's bring in Ashley right now, who's working from home. And Ashley, you have some details on why Marine Atlantic has shut down.
Yeah, we've got a big area of low pressure starting to make its way in. We're seeing some snow already for parts of the island. And as we head through the night, you can already see we're starting to see some change over to rain. That's going to continue to spread a little bit further east towards the eastern portion of the island. You can see just how large this area of low pressure is. And we do have a number of warnings in place, wind warnings for the areas along the south coast, northeast, as well as the northern peninsula and the straits. We've got some rainfall warnings as well. Heavy rain expected as we head through the overnight tonight. And then we've got a number of winter weather warnings up through Labrador. I'll have all those details coming up.
Lots of people are making their way back to the province right now. Flights have been booked up, so some people are choosing to drive. But there is a problem. Marine Atlantic has shut down ferry crossings until Sunday evening for 2 reasons. Bad weather is on the way and the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, Charles Pender is on the road right now, driving from Florida to the island. So, Mr. Pender, whereabouts are you?
I'm just south of Boston, Lowell, Massachusetts.
Okay, and how's it going so far?
Well, so far so good. Few surprises along the way. We just came to Pennsylvania yesterday, and the governor had ordered all non-life-sustaining businesses to close. So luckily at 7:45 last night, we pulled into a motel. They were just closing, so they did give us a room for the night and a couple of the cars behind us because they're not taking any more travelers. And the same thing driving along, all the rest stations are closed and so on. So a few little hiccups, but nothing major. I mean, we're doing okay.
And I guess you were already on the road when you found out about Marine Atlantic canceling crossings between now and on Sunday evening. So how does that affect you?
Well, we're hoping to get a crossing Saturday night. We had booked one. We got a message from Marine Atlantic yesterday saying because of the weather, it'll be delayed, and we got a message this morning now saying that it'll be Monday at the earliest, maybe Tuesday. So we're going to wait and see, but the other difficulty we found is that in Sydney, when I called to book hotels there, because knowing we were going to be delayed, found several hotels were not taking any new reservations. They've been ordered by their, I guess, their chain, wherever, not to take reservations. I don't know how many hotels it affects, but anybody traveling and you can't get in the ferry, there's no terminal open. And now it seems several hotels are not taking bookings for anybody arriving in Sydney or North Sydney.
But you were lucky you managed to find a hotel to take you.
Yeah, we found an independent one there and the same in Woodstock. So hopefully we're okay until we can get the boat across.
So Monday you're hoping to get on the boat. Do you know if you will be able to get on the boat? Because there are some restrictions. They're limiting the number of people who get on the vessel crossing. So how confident are you that you'll actually be able to get across on Monday?
Oh, we're not very confident. I mean, it might be Tuesday or Wednesday yet. We have no idea. I think they have an extra boat on, so they have 2 runs going each way each day. So we're hopeful. We've booked a cabin. We know we have to quarantine ourselves on the boat and that kind of thing. There's no restaurant service on the boat, so we've been told that once we go through the screening and we're on the boat, we have to go to our cabin and we have to stay there until the boat docks, and then we get in our car and we leave and have as little contact or no contact, I guess, with anybody aboard the ship.
And how does that self-isolation work between the time you get in Sydney at your hotel and when you get on that ferry? Have you been given any guidance? Are you supposed to stay inside your hotel?
We haven't been told anything yet. I guess when we get to the border, they're going to probably give us some information at Canada Border Services. I mean, we're pretty well being isolated as we are. We're keeping to ourselves in our vehicle. We're literally bathing ourselves in hand sanitizer. Everything I eat tastes like hand sanitizer. But other than that, we'll see how it goes. And they'll tell us at the border, I assume. Don't know if we have to self-isolate once we're over the border in a hotel or how that works, but we intend on keeping our distance from everyone and keep up the same routine we've been doing since we left Florida.
This sounds like a very stressful journey for you. There's so much uncertainty. The situation is evolving constantly. How are you feeling about it? Are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling stressed out?
I'm not too bad. I don't think we're taking it as it comes. I mean, there's not much we can do about it. So as we, go along and we find out things are canceled or something's closed, we hope that the next one's going. We're using a lot of the internet and checking on things ahead of time. We're following the Government of Canada websites and local websites as we go through the state here to get up-to-date information as best we can. It's not always that accurate, but so far so good. It's the roads. One bonus, I guess, there's not a lot of people on the roads, so I guess people are staying home. So the traffic has been pretty light, except for the trucks, and not even too many of those really. So it's I won't say stressful or anxious. I don't get like that, but it's it's a little concerning as you go along. You find out things are canceled or closed, and you see other people in the same situation. That don't have reservations in the hotel or on the boat, and you sort of wonder how those people are going to fare when they get there as well. So it's we're all in this together. We all are trying to reach out and help people. I've had some offers of help along the way from Connecticut and in New Brunswick if I get stuck. So people are following along. So that's been great.
Well, thank you so much for checking in with us, and I hope you have a safe journey home and that you stay healthy along the way.
Thank you very much. Nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well, to other news now. A 54-year-old Shearstown man has died after a single vehicle crash on the Trans-Canada Highway just east of Whitburn. The RCMP says the crash happened shortly after 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Police say the vehicle crossed over the center line and came to rest in the ditch on the opposite side of the road. The driver was the sole occupant and was trapped in the vehicle. He was removed by firefighters and transported by ambulance to the health center in Whitburn, where he was pronounced dead. A collision analyst with RCMP Traffic Services attended the scene, and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has been engaged. Well, the death of an estimated 2.6 million salmon last summer was caused by natural environmental conditions and not sea lice or infectious salmon anemia, according to a report from the Marine Institute. The report says prolonged high water temperatures over consecutive days and low oxygen levels are to blame for the massive fish die-off at 10 Northern Harvest Sea Farms sea cages in Fortune and Harbour Breton Bays last August and September. Northern Harvest Sea Farms is owned by Norwegian aquaculture giant Mowi. The report says treatment for sea lice was also a factor that contributed to the deaths. It says fish handling during treatments stressed the salmon and increased their oxygen needs, worsening conditions further. The report also criticizes the salmon farming company for failing to have robust contingency plans for such an extreme event. A major Canadian bond rating agency has placed the province's issuer and long-term debt ratings under review with negative implications. DBRS Morningstar says the rating actions are a result of a sharp decline in oil prices related to COVID-19 and actions taken by Saudi Arabia and Russia. The agency says it expects the drop in the price of oil will significantly and adversely affect government revenue, leading to further debt. Well, Paradise Teacher's classroom has changed a little since COVID-19 prompted the school district to suspend class. Now, sitting in the comfort of her home, she reads to students. Not to 20 or 30 students, but to hundreds. She created a Facebook page called Reading with Ms. Danny that has attracted lots of attention for bored students and exhausted parents.
Good morning, good morning.
I got a little bit down there on Monday and thought, well, what can I do? What can I do to make myself feel better? I need to get out of this slump. So I thought, let's read. I'm an avid reader, so let's share that with my little small group, which is now not a small group. Basically, every morning I'm going to pick a different book for the younger kids, read it to them online. At least then they're not getting sick of staring at their moms and dads' faces. So it's somebody else's face. And then right after that, I'm going to start reading chapter books for the older kids and putting up some booklets and activities that they are able to do as well. I'm floored. I didn't imagine that it was going to take off as it did. I was expecting to be reading to my best friend and her little girl, Sarah. I was expecting to be reading to maybe 30 kids.
I'm tired. I'm hungry, whined Molly. Don't worry, said Max.
There was 240 people watching while I was live for Stone Soup.
But we don't know anyone.
I even had to put up a time zone chart because people have been coming in asking where Newfoundland is and what time 10 o'clock is in, say, Arizona. So it's been wild.
Well, a St. John's woman stranded in Morocco is hoping to get home this weekend. She's one of many Canadians who've been unable to leave the North African country after it closed its borders to prevent the spread of coronavirus. But earlier today, some good news. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a flight to repatriate Canadians in Morocco. That will happen in the next few days. Here now's Mark Quinn connected with Kim LaRoche in Morocco.
So, Kim, what do you make of the Prime Minister's announcement?
Well, it's certainly good news. Of course, we're trying to make sure that we're on that first flight, or any flight, really, that leaves. Right now, we don't know very much in terms of the logistics, whether or not, we don't even know if it's leaving tomorrow, this weekend, or next weekend. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're, we are definitely registered with the consulate, which we are. We just sent them an email, both in French and in English, just saying that we want to get on that flight. And but we're not sure if it's going to be an Air France flight to Paris and then Air Canada from there, or Air Canada from here, or some other kind of charter. None of that information has been provided right now. So all we're doing is just kind of waiting and hoping for the best. And yeah, but it is a bit more hopeful, and hopefully we'll be home soon.
Excellent. So what was your situation before this announcement?
Well, our situation was, we just didn't know anything. We didn't know when we'd be able to leave, when there would be any kind of assistance from the Canadian government. We just hadn't heard anything from the Canadian government, which is really disheartening, because we knew that the Moroccan government had closed its borders, and the only planes that were leaving out of here were either through Air France or other airlines to Europe, which we were encouraged to do, but those planes were all full, and we just couldn't get on those flights.
And so how long have you been there now?
I've been here since March the 8th. Yeah, I actually had a delay in Halifax when I left. I had a bit of a harrowing way of getting here. There was a delay in Halifax. I missed my connection in Montreal. And then I was rerouted through Lyon. And then when I got here, of course, they lost my luggage. And then I was not until the next day until I got my luggage. But that's the least of my worries now.
You've had a pretty crazy ride, but it looks like maybe there's going to be a solution.
Yep. And we're all healthy. And, I'm just very grateful that there's so many people trying to help us get back home safe.
Now, you've got family here in St. John's. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get back to St. John's?
Well, I think I'm going to be quarantined actually. So, because just not to put anybody else at risk. So I have a cabin up in Whitburn, and I'm probably just going to go straight to Whitburn and quarantine. I just want to keep everybody safe. And yeah, and then after that, I'm really hoping to hug my family. Just everybody, my in-laws, and I miss my mother, of course, who's in Gatineau, so hopefully I'll get a chance to see her soon as well.
Okay, well, thank you so much for speaking with us. I don't want to tie up your line. You're probably trying to organize getting on that flight, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, many people from this province are still trying to get home amid this coronavirus crisis. Mike Lilly is one of them. He's in Arizona with his wife for the winter and joins me now. So, Mr. Lilly, what's your situation down there now?
Currently, after many hours on phones and such, we are booked to leave this coming Sunday to fly back to St. John's finally, myself and my wife and my mother-in-law. So it's been a little bit of a frustrating period, but hopefully it's coming to a conclusion.
What was frustrating about it?
Well, we unfortunately had, I said before the coronavirus really went more rampant, we had booked our flights in early March, and when the travel advisory hit on that Friday the 13th, unfortunately, we were forced now to make alternate plans because our medical insurance would have been void. So the criteria for getting refunds and such, part of our leg of a return was outside that, and additionally we had booked through a third-party travel company, so Air Canada and WestJet would not deal with us directly. And to this point, we have still had difficulty contacting this third-party travel agency, and it's just, I guess they're just overrun with similar situations to ourselves.
Yeah, no doubt. So it sounds like it's been a pretty complicated process for you.
Well, you're hours and hours on hold, which I'm sure is a common thing, and then sometimes when you finally get through to them, they say, well, our system has crashed, phone back. And then because you're unable to make your plans, you start making alternate plans to somehow ensure that you get home.
Yeah, well, at least you do have a flight home, and it won't be too long now before you're back on the island.
Correct. Hopefully, it's still going to be a little bit of a nervous process. No one wants to get on planes these days, but it's I'll say a necessary evil in order to get home for us.
Yeah, and you are traveling internationally, so that means that you will have to self-isolate for 2 weeks when you get back. How is that going to work for you? Because you haven't been in your house for a while. I assume your fridge is empty. How are you going to adjust to that self-isolation?